Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. And we have interesting guests all the time, as you know. And I really appreciate everybody that's on Facebook helping me out. I'm trying to get out and reach out to more people. I got an admin team. I got a website now. Everybody probably knows that by now that follow me. But I'm trying to get the word out because the government doesn't do that. Oh, and by the way, I'm Dave Emmons. Sorry, a little slow on that one. Uh, Max is looking at me. Max, my guess. But this is Dave Emmons with a strange reality show, and I get just we're just talking about trying to get the word out and about people that are writing UFO books and doing investigations like this gentleman I got coming up. Uh, we have a hard time getting that word out and enlightening people. And actually, the internet sometimes makes it tough for us on algorithms that happen to change all the time, and so we sometimes don't get the numbers or the views we want. But I hope that's not because you don't like the show. That could be a possibility. It's got to be one of the theories, but actually, my numbers are good, except you just have to have marketing, just like selling a book. And a lot of people think, well, these guys are making money off UFO books. No, we're not. We don't make much money in UFO books or telling the truth like that. There's many of them out there, and my guest just said that too about Bigfoot books that are out there. There's so many of them that the market's crowded. So if you want to be a writer, you'll have to write about something like maybe Daisy the Fairy or something like that, or something different. And I tried sci-fi reaching people. I got a sci-fi book out. We were supposed to meet, and that's actually come from a true story with that Japanese gal that I ran into in Sedona, and I hope a lot of people saw that video. That's got a lot of hits on it, and the second part of the story is really the big part where they come to my house and they dumbed my cousin and I down, and we couldn't talk or even move, just move our eyeballs. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to our guest, Maxim W Furek, and he's an avid student of the paranormal. His background includes aspects of psychology, addictions, and rock journalism. He actually was a journalist for rock and roll bands. He has a master's degree in communication at Bloomsburg University and a bachelor's degree in psychology from Aquinas High. Let's see. Maxim also he is with rock biographies and his paranormal theme books such as Flying Saucer Esoteric. We just talked about that book. He's been on my show. This is the third time. He's an interesting guest, and people like him. So I bring back those guests that do that. Altered States of Ufology and Coal Region Hoodoo. He wrote a book about that. That's in Shepton. The myth, miracle, and music was featured on Australia's Mysterious Universe, and Hanger One will publish his upcoming book. The same publisher I have, Maxim. We talked about that.
That's
And
right.
he's a contributor to the Fate magazine, Normal Paranormal, and Paranormal Underground, showcasing his expertise and knowledge in the field. Flying Saucer Esoteric and Altered States of Ufology explores the chronological and flying saucers, the chronology of flying saucers, not chronologic. The logic. I got to have more logic. And flying saucers, tracing historical accounts of theologians and astronomers. Uh, and here, the Coal Region Hoodoo, we went through that on the first show. People saw that, or you can go back on YouTube and look up those old shows, or on my website. And it's paranormal tales from inside the pit has been described as a fascinating book into Pennsylvania's paranormal wormhole through a never seen before sociological popular culture. He was a guest speaker at the 2023 Western Pennsylvania Cryptid and Supernatural Expo in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and 2024 Institute of Hermetic Studies Conference. Uh, Maxim, you've been around quite a bit. Tell us what you're doing now. This is it's third time I think Maxim's been on the show. Maxim Fury. Tell us what you're doing now and what brought you into all this.
Yeah. Hi, Dave. Good evening, and thanks so much for having me back on your show. Yeah, I was on your program back in 2024 two times, so this will be the third time. And as you mentioned, I'm a former psychologist and rock journalist, and that was my real passion. And back in let's see, it was 9 years ago, 2016, I had a book published called Shepton. It was the Shepton mythology, Shepton, the myth, miracle, and music. And it was about these three guys that were entombed in a mine in northeastern Pennsylvania. Only two came out, and they were allegations of cannibalism. And that actual event seemed to parallel what happened in a song called Timothy from 1971. Timothy was about cannibalism in a mine shaft. So I was just putting two and two together. I was working on a rock biography, and I realized that there were all these paranormal aspects that happened in Shepton in 63, i.e., out of body experiences, near death experiences, afterlife experiences. They saw humanoids, and the one miner who was Roman Catholic saw the apparition, saw the ghost of Pope John the 23rd, who had died in June. So he died in June. Shepton took place in August. And all three of the Pope's miracles, purported miracles, alleged miracles, they all happened after he died. And he was canonized in 2014. Just an amazing story. But irregardless, the Shepton mythology kicked it off for me. It opened up the doors to the paranormal. And Dave, it was like a whole bunch of dominoes just collapsing one after the other. I mean, doors opening, podcast invitations, expo invitations, that Australia Mysterious Universe thing. I mean, it just happened. It just blew up. So here I am. And again, I didn't go looking for the paranormal. It stalked me, found me, and hit me over the head. So
I think when you said the third pope, I thought you was going to talk about the black pope and the gray pope and the real pope. There's three of them. The black is not because of the black skin. He wears a black outfit, and nobody ever sees him. He's in the back room. He runs things. He's actually the one that makes all the decisions. The gray pope works in between them, and he looks more like a bishop or whatever, but he works in between them. But the pope is just kind of like the talking head, from what I understand. I've been gathering this story for a while. And you said, I just brought you have some notes here. You said Dr. Santi's story finds its way to TV program Oculus Alchemy, and you called him a so-called white witch, Frederick Santi. Could you explain that?
Yeah, that's all about my book, Coal Region Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit. And that book is just a sort of an encyclopedia of the paranormal. One of the chapters was about Dr. Frederick Santee. He was a white witch, and that he was the high priest for the Coven of the Cata. And that was a Wiccan religion. It was ordained by Sybil Leek, the most famous witch. And Sybil Leek, of course, she was from England. But after the UK repealed the Anti-Witch Act, she wrote a book about witchcraft, and what it did was it popularized witchcraft. It let people know that they too could go and practice this without getting, punished, and it opened up the doors. So she, more than anybody else, opened up the doors to, say, paganism and the Wicca craft. And again, for those of your listeners that don't know too much about that, Wicca believes that God is in everything, in the trees, the stars, the grass, the air, whatever. It's pantheistic. It's many gods, not multi-theistic or monotheistic, not one God, but many gods. So, they were homeopathic people. They would make their own salves and everything. But the important thing is, and this is interesting because, you talk a lot about the paranormal. Wiccans believe that people have innate powers, that we can harness those powers. For example, by getting a coven, you get 12 people in a circle and you pray over a person, say, that has cancer or diabetes. Okay, you hope that through their talents, through the powers that they have, that they could go and heal these people. Now, this is sort of like Christian prayer circles where, somebody will say, somebody's suffering from cancer, please pray for them. And you have like 100 people praying on the same vibration doing that. So it's a similar thing. But with Dr. Santee, when I interviewed him several times. He lived 5 miles up the road from me, but he said that you could use these powers for good or bad. If you use the powers through the right path, that is the right side of your body, your right hand, you do it for good, for healing and helping. If you do it through the left hand, that left pathway, to cause harm, hexes or put a spell on somebody, that will come back on you. That's karma. And if you do something good or bad, it'll both come on you in equal measure. So he was saying that it's, that you really want to think twice before trying to use your powers to put a
So,
pox on somebody.
so
So
Maxim, I guess you don't want a southpaw working on you.
I do not. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
So
With the
Santee
White
was,
Witch, could you tell us what the White Witch is? Is that part of the Wiccan thing?
yeah, well, that's a common terminology. He was a witch, but they called him a white witch, not a black witch, not somebody who was dabbling in evil, not someone who was walking in league with the devil, but somebody who was good, positive. So Santee was the youngest person to graduate from Harvard. He was 13. He was a child prodigy,
Oh,
and when he went over to Europe, he met people like Sybil Leek, like Aleister Crowley, a
mm.
whole lot of interesting people. But like minds gather, these geniuses gather, and they just want to get together to find out, what do you know about this topic and what do I know, and to share commonality and all that. So interesting guy. There was a chapter, and here's what happened. Talk about those dominoes, or talk about karma. A guy I know from northeastern Pennsylvania puts on these esoteric conferences every year. He got a copy of Coal Region Hoodoo. He read the chapter about Dr. Santee and invited me to this conference to present on Dr. Santee. So that happened last year. This woman came up to me and handed me a card. She wasn't Japanese and she wasn't from Venus, but she was from New York City. She gave me the card. That was a joke. I slid one in there, Dave.
Oh,
And she gave me her card. She goes, I'd like to do something on Dr. Santee. 2 months later, she came there and she shot this documentary that is now being posted on YouTube. So it's only a 13-minute documentary with all these people that knew Santee. And I put this together. I gathered these people that I knew him. So we all talked a little bit about him. Now, the director, Samantha Collins, wants to turn this into an expanded documentary, like an hour and a half, and maybe take it around to film festivals. So this all happened because of that chapter on Santee that was in Coal Region Hoodoo, and it begat the conference, the invitation, the 13-minute documentary on Oculus alchemy, and hopefully, an extended documentary. So, you talked earlier about guys like podcasters like you and authors like me looking to have doors opened, to have,
yeah.
to be. And so this seems to be something. I'm very tentative and cautious about this, but I think this might be a really, really good opportunity for me and for my career, just to have people hear about my research and my writing. So I'm very enthused, and I'm in a really good place right now.
Yeah. When I have you on as a guest, I always remind myself, slow down, Dave. I got so much to cover with you because you cover ETs, you cover Bigfoot, you cover paranormal, you cover hauntings. And let's get to that haunting. I'll slow down a little bit. I don't want to make you feel.
You're doing good. You're doing
But
good.
I want you to talk to about the Smurl haunting and its similarity to Amityville Horror.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about haunted houses, poltergeists and all that, uh, it's pretty much all the same. It's horrible. It's horrible. But what happened in the Smurl haunting back in the 80s, and that took place in northeastern Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
that's in my backyard. And the Smurl haunting of the 80s was similar to what happened in Amityville in New York. A house that there were these grunting sounds, there were horrible smells, there were profanities being etched in the mirrors. The collie was levitated, it was lifted up and flung across the room. That was either demonic energies or possibly psychokinetic power by the young daughter, the Smurl daughter, Dawn. And this was straight out of Stephen King. Stephen King made a career out of writing about young adolescents who had powers, whether it was Carrie or Firestarter or the Shining,
Yeah.
but they had powers. But one of the theories is that when that collie at the Smurl haunting was levitated and thrown across, that it might have been the daughter that did that. We don't know. But anyway, there were all these really horrific things that happened, including the father, Jack Smurl, claiming that he was raped by a female demon, a succubus. So
Yes.
he went public with that. And what happened was they were Catholics. The church sent over a priest to spend the night to see if anything was going on. They brought in the exorcist. Every priest, every Catholic diocese has a priest who is skilled in exorcism. So they brought in the neighborhood exorcist, and he did his thing. Nothing happened. They kept on bringing these guys to go and try to cleanse the house, purge the house, say prayers, holy water, the crucifix, all this. Nothing happened. They brought in Ed and Lorraine Warren, who tried to go and get rid of the demons, and they couldn't. So they finally contacted Father Treebolt. He was a priest from New York State. He was at a college there. It took him 4 exorcist rites before he was able to cleanse the house 4 times. And the Schmurls left that house and they relocated. But the thing about demonic possession, Father Treebolt tried to go and do a cleansing in New York State, and he wasn't able to get the job done. He said that there's some places that are just so evil that you need to go and step away from that place, pack your belongings and leave, and don't tell anybody where you're going, and just leave because those places are evil.
Mm-hmm. You might call my house haunted. My wife, I'll be grunting and groaning, and she'll ask me, "Do you hear those grunts and groans?" I said, "No, that's just me trying to take my socks off."
But I'll tell you, I was invited to the Butler, Pennsylvania Paranormal Conference on, let me see, April the 26th.
Butler, Pennsylvania, yeah.
Butler, Pennsylvania, yep.
Famous, very famous, yeah.
Very famous, yes.
Yeah.
And I was a guest speaker, so on the bill with me were the Psychic Vincent sisters. They're from Butler, so they work with the police. They try to find missing people. They try to find murderers and all this, and they have these abilities. They're really interesting people, great people.
Okay, now you were talking about evil, and what is your take on? Is there an existence of evil and the devil? What do you know about that topic?
Well, that's what I was trying to say with the Psychic Vincent sisters, because when they were doing their presentation, this guy stood up and showed these pictures. He was a ghost hunter. He would go to these places, and he would go into these former prisons and mental institutions and look for demons. And this one night he was attacked by a demon. He showed pictures. His chest was clawed up. His eye was bulging. He showed these pictures. And the Psychic Vincent sisters said that this was a case of demonic attachment, that these demons attached themselves to him because he was opened up to that. He would go to these places by himself. And, a lot of people are ghost hunters. They go looking for demons. Well, you know what? The law of probability, Blaise Pascal said that. The law of probability says that if you do this enough times, you're going to go and find a demon.
Yes. You'll get what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So with evil and the devil, yes, I believe that evil exists. And I know there's a debate going on, but I believe that evil exists. I believe the devil exists. I believe that the devil wants us to think that it's just a fairy tale, a bedtime story, so that we're off our guard. But and I think a lot of people think that believing in evil and the devil is something that's old-fashioned, that the church used to use this to scare us. Dave, if you don't say your prayers, the devil's going to get you.
That's it.
And all those variations. So religion is a combination of hope and redemption as well as fear. We walk a tight boundary there with religious ideations.
You can't have any fun in life.
Yeah, exactly.
I see some religions have that, that you cannot have any fun. You got to wear long dresses, and you can't get near a tavern. If you walk past the tavern and you get beer splashed on you, one of the congregants may catch you and turn you into the high dog there in the church. And I heard this from a assistant preacher. at a Baptist church. He told me he got in trouble going into a restaurant and somebody saw him and he was about maybe 20 feet away from a bar, where they serve booze and
Yeah,
food. He
yeah.
got in trouble. He got called on the carpet. So yeah,
Uh,
no, this is very. I don't like that. I'm not. I don't get in religion. I think that what they do when you were talking about getting in and healing people, that God is inside of us. He's
right,
not. He's not outside of us. That's
right.
spiritualism. Let's go into talk about the bad, evil stuff. The Conjuring and the last rites of the Smurl Haunting, and how does that have anything to do and you met Ed and Lorraine Warren. But that did you meet them? It says based on accounts of Ed. Oh, you said based on accounts, and how to get to meet Ed and Lorraine. Uh, could you tell us about that? The Conjuring and these two people you're talking about, Maxim.
Yeah, well, it all goes back to the Smurl Haunting in northeastern Pennsylvania. They brought in Ed and Lorraine Warren to see if they could go and help with the demons. And what happened was there was a book written called The Haunted.
Yeah.
And so Ed and Lorraine Warren were co-writers along with the Schmerls and this guy named Jack Curran. He was a reporter. So the book came out. The Ed and Lorraine Warren were doing a 15-city book tour. They were in this very touristy place called Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. And I wrote a letter to the promoter and I got permission to go there and interview them and take pictures. So I have these wonderful pictures of Ed and Lorraine Warren that I have in Coal Region Hoodoo that are really, I'm just so proud of the way these turned out. But here's Ed and Lorraine, if you could see that.
Okay. Yeah, we see it.
Very nice shot.
Yeah.
And that was 1988. So I we befriended each other. I would call Ed, they lived in Connecticut, and ask him questions about demonology. How did you do battle with the demons? What did you do? How did that work? And they were very friendly, very gracious.
Mhm.
I think they liked me, they respected me, and they walked me through some of these things. And so I stayed in touch with them over the years. Lorraine had a pet rooster. You could hear the rooster in the background.
Mhm.
And but they were very, very nice people. And like I said, they were involved in the Amityville haunting as well as the Smurl haunting. Now, you were asking about the Conjuring,
Yeah.
the last rites.
Yeah, there's a
So,
TV show right now on I think Netflix, The Conjuring, and they've been playing that movie. There's a couple of different adaptations of that movie, Conjuring. What is The Conjuring all about? I guess about
yeah.
the Smurl haunting, Maxim.
No, it's not. It's about the careers of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So there's 9 motion pictures in the Conjuring franchise, 9 motion pictures worth, Dave, $2.1 billion.
My
It's
God.
the most successful, almost as successful as your podcast, but it's the most successful
Thank you.
horror franchise
Thank you.
out there. Now, the latest one is going to be coming out in September of this year, 2025, and it's Conjuring the Last Rites, and that's specifically about the Smurl haunting. And
Yeah.
I really can't wait to see that because this is our backyard. This happened here. So,
Is that on Netflix or is it on the regular channel?
well, it's going to be at the theater
Oh, yeah.
in September, and then at some point it'll be streamed onto Netflix. But initially, it'll be a theatrical release. But again, that'll be I think that's number 10 in the Conjuring franchise, which also included the Annabelle and Annabelle Comes Home and the
Oh,
Nun.
yeah. I had a comment from somebody on one of my posts, and it says, "What do you think about the Annabelle doll?" I knew nothing about it, and
Oh, okay, yeah,
I kind of responded. I said, "What does this have anything to do with this video I just showed?"
yeah.
I said, please, explain." But Maxim, could you explain this Annabelle doll thing?
Yeah. Well, Annabelle was in several of the Conjuring movies. It is located in the Warrens, I don't know, in Warrens Paranormal Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. And Tony Spira, who now took possession of the museum, he took this on a tour. Now, it went down to Louisiana and he took it to a few of the venues there. But at the same time that Annabelle was down in Louisiana, they had 2 things that happened. One was the prison break. It was an inside job. Everybody saw it, were these, I think, 7 guys maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, in what is it, New Orleans?
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah.
It was 10 guys.
Okay, 10 guys. Okay, 10 guys broke out, and then they arrested three immediately, so there were seven. Okay, so 10 guys, but um, this happened right around the time that Annabelle was down there in the neighborhood,
Really?
and then something else happened. There was a fire, so there was a lot of internet hysteria claiming that Annabelle caused all this stuff. So uh, that may or may not be true, but Annabelle's going to be in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania in July, and I plan on being there. And uh, just to see what that's all about. But
Is this doll, Maxima, is this a doll, a physical doll that they
yeah,
carry around with them?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a physical doll, and it usually stays in the Occult Museum in Connecticut. That was Lorraine's mandate. She wanted it to stay there, but now Tony Spira is taking it around. He says that there's a priest that accompanies the doll. I think it's Father Bob. And so anyway, this is what he's saying. He said that it's being monitored and watched. So, but anyway, it's going to be in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania on July 22nd and 23rd. And I'm thinking about maybe taking a little road trip there. So
That's
Dave,
kind of,
if you want to join me, go ahead.
yeah, that's kind of a haunted place, Gettysburg. Yeah.
It is.
A lot
Yeah,
of people
they
go.
always talk about the lost spirits. That Gettysburg is just a place filled with lost spirits. Maybe not demonic spirits, but just lost souls that have lost their way. They're trying to find their way, and and
I
there's
want,
lots of them.
yeah, I wanted to ask you about the demon and the devil. A lot of people, not a lot, I'd say maybe 25% of the people talk to say that ETs are evil. Now, Maxim, what is that connection? Do you have any connection with believing in that ETs could be evil?
No, I like to think, like George Adamski talked about that the ETs are space brothers. They were here initially to warn us about so that we wouldn't destroy ourselves with the atomic bombs and all that. So I like to think that they're benevolent, that they have some great abilities and knowledge, and that maybe they're just watching us, and they're probably shaking their heads in dismay that man's destroying our planet, every way we can. So, I mean, there's no denying that. And,
Man,
I think we could do better. We
yeah,
could do, we could be more loving and kinder, more ultra. We could show more compassion.
right.
And the secret is more music and more compassion.
Bingo. Since you've been in music, I played music for a long time too, but this, bringing up this thing is LA riots are going on, and we need to settle this crazy stuff down, like you're saying. I mean, more kindness and thought. Let's talk about these discussions. Let's talk about these things instead of going crazy and burning things.
And Dave, just what you just said, if you could just play this back and hear what you're saying, you said it in a very level, moderate tone. It was the voice of moderation, and it wasn't so much the words that you were saying, but just the way you said it. These are the conversations we need to hear in this country right now. Voices of understanding and moderation saying, tell me more about that. Help me to understand what you're saying. So we need to do that. And, and even though there's a lot of stuff that's happening out there that we don't like, at least right now, this very moment, you and I are engaged in a civil conversation,
Right.
as we should, so this is a good example. And, and God bless you, brother. I mean, I'm
God
glad
bless
we're,
you.
you know,
Yeah, we're bros. This is third time on the show, so
yeah.
you become a bro on the third time.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's talk. Let's get back to the Pope John Paul and his exorcism college, and then talk about the Catholic mysticism, the names of Saint Theresa and Avila, and Padre Peale. I'll put that in a big luggage bag and throw it at you. Maxim, talk about that.
I know you're good at those
Yeah.
5-part questions.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm testing your memory because mine's not so great.
You're killing me. Okay. Well, anyway, when Pope John the 23rd, he was the guy that was in the mine in Shepton, and he was down there for 2 weeks, and the miners claimed that he saved their lives, that what happened in Shepton was a miracle. Pope John the 23rd. When Pope John the 23rd was canonized in 2014, it was a dual canonization. There were two guys that were canonized. One was Pope John the 23rd. The other one was Pope John Paul II. Now, here's the deal. Pope John Paul II was an exorcist, and he believed that the devil was real and that evil exists. He believed that we were letting that go. And what he did was he organized a college of exorcism. He brought in priests from something like 132 countries to learn this ancient medieval rite of exorcism, so that these priests, these modern day priests, could go and do battle with these demons. So again, whether you believe it or not, I guess that's not the point. But, we're talking about the occult. We're talking about the supernatural. We're talking about those levels, those other dimensions of vibration and what ectoplasm and all this stuff. That's what this is all about. So, pretty important stuff. And it's funny how the 6 degrees of separation, as I'm researching this stuff, as I'm finding all about Pope John the 23rd, which I consider myself sort of knowledgeable about him, and then all of a sudden here's Pope John Paul II, who was an exorcist and just like really spoke out about the essence of evil and that we need to be aware. I mean, people typically don't do that. A lot of Christian churches and ministers do the praise worshiping. It's all positive. It's all good. It's all, the afterlife and the redemption and all that. And we're going to go to heaven and all that. A lot of times you don't hear the other side of it. The warning, the stuff that you heard in Revelations, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So, that message is still there, but it's sort of sugar coated and toned down a bit, but there's still that undercurrent. It's all over the Bible. And, a lot of Christians are just waiting for the end times. They're waiting for that day. Some people think it's right around the corner. So,
that's happened how many hundreds of times in the last couple of years? We don't really know. And it's just truthful. Only God knows, or the source, or the creator.
Now, you took away what I was going to say. I'm predicting it's going to happen tomorrow. So
okay. Well, there's a lot of things they keep saying, and you listen to the internet, it'll tell you all kinds of crazy things are going to happen. Well, look at your clock tomorrow at 12 o'clock. This is going to happen. The sun's burst open. I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, I need to move on in this story. All right, I know I want to zip open this luggage package a little bit better. This mysticism, the mention of the names of Saint Theresa, Avila, and Padre Peale. Why are they so significant, Maxim?
Well, they're significant to me, and I'll tell you why. I'm a paranormal author, and I love flying saucers. I love ghost and demonology and Bigfoot and cryptids and all that. Just wonderful, fascinating stuff. And Dave, I'm just like you. I want to find answers. There's a little bit of Indiana Jones in all of us. We're looking for that holy grail. We want to be the ones who put the puzzle together and find all the pieces and all that. But I think of all the things that are out there in the supernatural, and the supernatural being something that's outside of the realm of science. It may be of the scientific, but it's just outside of the scientific because we don't know how it operates. But of all the things that are out there, I think Catholic mysticism is the one thing that speaks to me in the loudest voice. Guardian angels, apparitions, spirit guides, miracles, and that includes Saint Theresa of Avila and also Padre Peale. And I want to tell you a little bit about Padre Peale. He was on Robert Stack's Unsolved Mysteries, decades ago. And Padre Peale was this guy that suffered stigmata. He had the wounds of Christ, and he was bleeding. And a lot of and he's in Italy. He's a priest, and he's doing his sermons, and he's hearing confessions, and he's bleeding. And people would go there because they wanted to see him bleeding, or they thought he was holy. A lot of priests didn't believe it. He thought maybe he was a con artist. So what they did was they took gauze, they wrapped his wounds, And they kept those bandages there for like 6, 7 days. And then they unwrapped the gauze. And what they were looking for, they were hoping to find scars and scabs. They were hoping that Padre Peale was healing just like you and I, like normal human beings. Well, he wasn't. He was still bleeding when they took off the thing. So he continued to bleed. The Vatican sent people there. They thought, and thousands of people were coming to this parish in Italy to see Padre Peale, to see the stigmata. The Vatican thought he was a con artist that had convinced thousands of people to believe in his fantasies, his delusions. They didn't know what to do with him. The other thing that Padre Peale did was he had the gift of bilocation. There are numerous documentations of Padre Peale being, say, at an opera house with his fellow priests and brothers, being watched, talking, etc. And then he was also 100 miles away, someplace else, physically visible with all these witnesses, 2 places at the same time. Padre Peale. So
Yeah.
bilocation and the stigmata, they believed that he was able to go and heal people. And they believed that God was working through him, God channeled through him for him to do the miracles, but also Padre Peale paid the price. Not only physically was he tortured his whole life with the stigmata, but this blessed individual who walked in the shadow of Jesus, he was disrespected by the people in the Vatican, people that didn't believe that he was honest and honorable. And that was probably the hard thing to accept, that they would not accept his truth. That was Padre Peale. So he was one that I just have such a fascination for. And then the other one is St. Theresa of Avila, who was a 17th century Spanish mystic. And St. Theresa said that through prayer and meditation, we can reach certain stages of rapture and ecstasy, and what she called flight of the soul. And that is an out-of-body experience. And the miners in Shepton had that out-of-body experience. They did it. They had it. The one guy had it twice, but they were able to go up there and look down and see the rescue, thousands of people that were trying to rescue them in the mine shaft. So St. Theresa of Avila was the one who gave us that. There's documentation that she actually levitated, just like Indian fakers who lay on steel nails and can levitate. St. Theresa of Avila, it's been documented, was able to go and levitate only because of the power of prayer and the prayers that she would.
Yeah. The spiritual energy, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to help you sum it up there, but no, I'd like to know more. There's a lot of stuff said about the popes. And I said popes, I said 3 earlier. And there's a lot of said about the secrets they keep. And downstairs in their basement, in the hallways and tunnels, they have record after record throughout the millennia. I mean, the last couple thousand years, probably longer. And there's stuff that they're keeping from us. And are they keeping a lot of stuff from us, Maxim, downstairs?
Well, I don't know, but I've heard that their network, and you could call it a spy network, call you what, but their network is equivalent to the CIA or the KGB, because they have churches, they have priests all over the world. So, they certainly have a long reach. But in July of 2023, it was David Grush who was testifying in the congressional UFO hearings that a flying saucer was retrieved in the 1930s by Mussolini, that Mussolini gave it to the Vatican, and the Vatican gave it to the United States. So I don't know how true that is. I did some research and I wasn't able to find anything substantial. But David Grush, who was the whistleblower, he was the one that talked about this. And I was wondering, where's all the ruckus? I mean, this is exciting stuff. This is juicy stuff. Where were the people asking follow-up questions about the Vatican flying saucer? Mussolini's flying saucer. So it was a interesting story, a fantastic story that just died. And I'm very disturbed and very upset that the congressional hearings of July 2023 and the congressional hearings of November 2024 led to a dead end. It was, they talked the talk, they didn't walk the talk. There was no convincing, no conclusive evidence, only whistleblowers saying, I believe that they know something. And it's always that thing. I believe the government knows something. There's nothing beyond that. I mean, how long are we going to hear that song and dance before we get something that's, again, that's substantial?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to. What do you think the Pope knows about ETs? They said one time he made a public announcement. He said if ETs land here, he said they're more than welcome to come here to the Vatican, and we'll put them at ease and talk to them. We want to talk to
Yeah.
them. So they believe in ETs, I guess, right, Maxim?
I really don't know. As a former altar boy and practicing Catholic, I don't know. I haven't, I'm not privy to any of that, although I'm certainly fascinated by, that concept. I don't know what they know. I don't know what's down there in the archives. I'm sure that there's things there that they have literature that's called occult literature.
Mhm.
And these are accounts that long ago they didn't feel that the commoners, the peasants, should have access to. These were things that only the learned monks and priests and shamans had, the bishops. So there was information there that had been kept secret for the longest time. And I don't know if there's still documents like that that are being hidden, that are being kept from us. I don't know. I mean, Dave, there's so much out there. We're just, even when our program, we're just untapping a tiny, tiny little bit of it.
Yeah, and that's of course, with the hour or so we have to talk, that's we can only get so much in, but we need to get enough out there to get spark people's interest. Speaking of the committee that's supposed to have disclosure, uh, Representative Comer and Representative Luna, she's a really honest, soft-spoken person. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, she put out some hints from the committee meetings they had, and she said yes. She said John Kennedy was shot by not one shooter but two. She said they found that out, and she said that we're thinking that with the whistleblowers that's talking about ETs and UFOs, she thinks that they're interdimensional beings, not actual physical ETs here on this planet. In which I think she's wrong about that. I think they got bases here, and then the Pentagon said they got bases here. Uh, so they're giving out little hints here and there. And watch Representative Luna, because she said something today or yesterday about the LA riots. She said it's being sponsored and paid for by a certain guy, and I'd have to look his name up. He's a billionaire, and he's in China. He actually
Huh.
works in China, and let me find out his name. I'll look it up. But she put that word out, and why she did, and none of the higher ups did that. Why doesn't somebody higher up come out and talk about this stuff? Uh, Let me see here. His name is okay. He's a former tech CEO, and his name is oh gosh, Neville Roy Singham. Neville Roy Singham.
And this is a Chinese guy.
No, he's not Chinese.
Oh, okay.
He's American.
Oh, okay.
He's a former CEO, and he went to China to work. So he worked
Oh,
with
okay.
China. So he's actually funding the rebellion, or the riots that are across this country right now. And of course, China's going to go along with him. They're going to help him out. So
Well, when they had those congressional hearings in 2023, I wrote 6 letters to people that were on the congressional committee. Marco Rubio, who was a senator at the time, that was before he became Secretary of State. Paulina Luna,
yeah.
Chuck Schumer, the guy from Tennessee. I forget. There were 6 of them. The only one that responded was Marco Rubio. So he sent me a nice letter, and then I was getting ready to send him another one to have a correspondence, but he was chosen as Secretary of State. My letter to those 6 people was this: let's please encourage David Grush to show his cards.
Right.
come on, he's taken us this close. He said that he has information, confidential information, that he would disclose under the right circumstances to the right people. It's been over a year since he said that, so I'm beginning to think that, this is another case maybe of smoke and mirrors. I mean, we're not, he talks a good talk, but I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. And, even with these congressional hearings, we have not been able to get any closer to the truth. That frustrates me.
Mm-hmm.
I would also encourage your listeners that if they agree with me, that they could, it's an easy thing to write a letter to your representative and say, and demand to know, full disclosure, what do they know about these ETs? What do they know about Roswell and Area 51 and everything else? Let us know.
Well, there's been some other things said, and the Pentagon, where they were at a hearing, and they were concerned they're needing funds and a budget to come up with some way to knock these drones down. Apparently, the frequency guns that they have now, that they point at them and they try to mess up their signals from the controller, and it goes down. They said they don't work against these drones that've been flying in New York, New Jersey, and all around the country. And the Pentagon's a little afraid of it. They said, "What's going on? We need to have some solutions." And the governor of New Jersey said the same thing. He demanded that the federal government help them out and assist their military bases, because these drones still fly over every once in a while over
Yeah.
military bases. So we still had that problem. Maxim, what do you think these drones are? I heard they're half and half ours, half ET. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, all I know is that we had that drone hysteria of 2024,
Mhm.
and everybody was looking up in the sky. It started around Halloween, and we started to see all these drones over New Jersey,
Right.
and it spread. It was over in the UK, but it was almost like a Rorschach test. Anybody who looked up in the sky saw something. And again, it was either ours, theirs, or maybe extraterrestrial or interdimensional. We didn't know. But the thing that was upsetting, that the government didn't know, and the government was not able to go and articulate anything in a meaningful cognitive manner. And I listened to some of these people, like the guy with Homeland Security. I mean, they just were not good. They just fanned the flames. Nobody was able to go and tell us the truth because nobody knew anything. It was probably the worst example of crisis management.
Right.
We were afraid, and the government wasn't able to say anything. And even President-elect Trump was saying that the government knows something and they're not telling us, when that just added to the flames, that there was a conspiracy to
But
keep
then,
us from knowing.
then he turned around, and this is what kind of pissed me off. He said the same thing as President Biden said. President Biden said that that we know about them. Our military knows about these drones. They're friendly. They're FAA approved. And then Trump turned around after he made that comment. Uh, that was, I guess, while he's running, maybe. And then after he got in as president, he said they're FAA approved. They're not our enemy. He said we had nothing to be afraid of. And I thought, oh my God, we're hearing the same thing now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the Pentagon and the military are nervous, and they've actually shown their nervousness over these drones because they need control of the situation, Maxim.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then, so that was 2024. And so we're still trying to figure that one out. How about in 2023 when we had the Chinese balloons
Yeah.
flying all over the place and we're shooting them down and all that? What was up with that? What was the conclusion to that? I mean, did we ever read them the riot act? I mean, these balloons were as big as buses. This was espionage right in front of our faces. This was
Right.
just,
Well, yeah, and they didn't shoot the balloon down. Now, the one balloon that come over across our country, now that was a balloon. You can tell they got video on that. But pilots said the ones that they shot down over Canada, one over Canada, and then one over Alaska, and they said that the pilot that went up on it and shot it down, he said it looked metallic, and it was actually he described the shape of it as being square or rectangle, and
yeah,
he said it didn't look like something that he would think would be a balloon, so he shot it down.
yeah,
So, and then they said they was going to retrieve the debris on the ground in Canada, but you never hear anything after that.
exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Everything happens like that. If the FBI moves in on a scene, it's done. No, you don't hear nothing about it, Maxim.
Well, it's Dave, it's called on a need to know basis.
Yeah.
And Dave Emmons has as much need to know as does Maxim Furek. So that's the way that works.
Yeah,
You and I, brother, are out of the loop.
I know, I
You know,
know.
we don't know, and we may never know.
Well, they don't like us to talk about it either, but anymore they don't really push on us too much. I was followed a few times, but I got rid of that following. They sometimes try to do that to you, a targeted individual, and anybody that's an influencer, they check on you. They're
Yeah.
listening in, they hear everything. They want to know if you know something more than they do. If you
Well,
found, that's the thing.
if you they want to see if you can articulate the message, because there's a lot of us talking the same kind of talk, but
Right.
if you can convincingly articulate that message, then you have a gift, you have a power, and they're afraid of that. Just takes one influencer, one person who could go and sort of influence a whole bunch of others. So that's what they're looking for. They're
Right.
trying to find guys maybe like you who potentially could influence hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, I'm hoping to, get within organizations that I can contribute to. I'm getting on an age, and I want to do something, before I roll over. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
roll over easy. But
yeah,
let's get back to this disclosure. Louis Alessandro, he
yeah,
works with the Space Force, and and then they said there's been a few lies they've caught him in.
yeah, right.
He
Yeah,
plays both sides of the coin.
yeah.
What do you know about that, Maxim?
Well, he was the poster child for the 2024 congressional hearings. He was their
Right?
their big boy, and he said pretty much the same thing that Grush was saying. The government knows where things are, but Louis Alexander was in my home state of Pennsylvania. He was in Philadelphia. He was charging $50 a head for these people to come there and hear about the flying saucers. He showed a flying saucer allegedly from Romania, and what it was like a candelabra that was reflecting and everything. It was just a hoax. I
Yeah.
mean, now either his people, and I think this was intentional, but he got caught. But what they did was, rather than saying, well, we're sorry, we made a mistake, we shouldn't have done this, what they did was they flipped it, and they thanked the public for being for scrutinizing this saucer and being able to tell that it was a hoax and everything. So they flipped it, and they lavished praise on the people that actually found out that he was a hoaxer. So I mean, it was a great mechanism to use, and that's all that it was. But I don't know. I mean, if he lied about that saucer from Romania, what else is he lying about? And even in his book, his latest book, I mean, there's all these pictures of Luis Elizondo with all these big and famous people, like, I mean, so like a who's who of ufology. So, he had a whole lot of that. There was a lot of that style, but very little substance. Nonetheless, that book, and I'm trying to think what it was called. It wasn't Disclosure, but whatever it was, it really did well. It did well in the marketplace. I mean, it really had a really big liftoff. I remember every other thing I got on Facebook was Luis Alexander's book. I
Yeah.
mean, they were really slamming it. So, you
Yeah.
know,
The talking heads in the ufology, some I think they're just gatekeepers and
mhm.
maybe misinformation, disinformation. Some are real, and some I've gotten to know pretty well. Uh, but with my books and with my experiences, uh, if you have too many experiences, they try to log you down as a phony or whatever. And but that's not really true. I was told by Linda Moulton Hall that if you had a bunch of experiences, ongoing experiences, it's hard for these talking heads to gatekeep you. And they what they do is kind of block you out and they don't believe you. But I'm sitting here now swearing to my creator and God that everything in my book, my first book, is true. And I still have things going on today. I still have car problems every once in a while. I can tell you about, I don't know if you'd have the same thing, Maxim. You have little paranormal things with electricity and car problems. Uh, I had, not, I got two cars. I had one back in December where the lights went crazy. Everything, the dash was going crazy. And this was around the time all these UFOs and drones were being sighted back in December in that area. And the car just was going crazy. But I saw the lights flashing on the side of the mirrors, This is a Cadillac Escalade. It's an older model, but it was working just fine. And there's something told me to drive it. I drove it for 10 minutes and then it stopped. Well, I eventually took that car the next following week to the dealership to have it checked out. And the two guys that ran the computerized testing on it, they ran it through twice, and they said they didn't find anything in the history, didn't find anything in the present time, didn't find anything pending. And they looked at me like I was crazy. I said, "Look, guys, I'm not crazy. I know what my car did." And
Yeah.
the two guys that dealt with me before, they've dealt with me when I was going out west, and I've had some things happen to my car. And they said, "Dave, stay away from those ETs, buddy." And they're believers, but then it happened. Then something happened. To my other the car, I I tried to put it in drive and it wouldn't go. Emergency brake wasn't on. Nothing was stopping it. I tried to put it in reverse, it wouldn't go. So I had to kind of put it in park, and I killed the engine, and I started it back up, and then it went. That happened to the Cadillac, and it happened to the new Honda that I got. It did the same thing 3 times now. And the little brake that you got in the middle of the console is kind of a push button brake, emergency brake. And you have to pull up on it and put your foot on the brake to engage it. And I thought, I got in the car, and my wife was with me a couple of times when this happened. It just does it on its own, or something is causing it to do that. And I told the Honda dealer, I said, wait a minute. I said, both my cars. And they said, what? Both of your cars? I said, yeah, both of them do the same thing. They brake and they won't let me move forward or backwards. Somebody's trying to tell me something, I think,
Yeah.
some kind of electronic control. But that happens to a lot of people. I talk to people who have electrical problems. Could this be ghosts or ETs that are doing these things, Maxim? And what do you know about ghosts? Or
Well, first of all, it could be it could be all of that. It could be ETs or demons or whatever. But it could be too that you have some sort of ability, that you have a higher frequency, that you're able to go and be attuned with some of these other energies, these forces that are out there. So if these paranormal events are happening one after the other, like it sounds like they are with you, then maybe you're just more in tune with these vibrations than the rest of us. So you're probably going to be seeing more, and that's probably how that happens. I mean, you're almost like an open door for these things to visit and come in. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know why.
yeah,
Uh,
well, it's partly because I'm talking to you and we're talking about this topic and the subject, Maxim, that actually draws attention to ourselves. I've
mhm.
talked to other people too that are deeply involved in investigation and journalism in the UFOs, and they have the same thing. They have little electronic problems. They have things happen. Sometimes I can't trigger my cell phone. I have to give it to my wife to let her take the picture because my electricity gets up high enough that
Yeah,
it
there you
doesn't.
go. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
my wife talks about that too, about my electricity, but uh, it's like I don't know. It's hard to explain what's going on, but what what
I think in a word or in a phrase, it's an altered state of perception, that you're able to perceive dimensions and things that the rest of us can't. So you're maybe in that pocket, you're in that paranormal pocket, you're in that place where you can view these things and experience these things. Not everybody can. I mean, it's the same explanation they have for Bigfoot, for cryptids.
Mhm.
Some people seem to have the ability to see them,
Right.
perhaps communicate with them,
Mhm.
telepathically. There's the theory that Bigfoot is a creature with psychic abilities, and if you also have that altered state of perception, that perhaps you could go and communicate with a creature like a cryptid like Bigfoot. So
I've never seen a Bigfoot, Maxim. Neither have I seen a cryptid, but I've seen three ETs face to face, and I've seen several in dreams, lucid dreams, and face to face, and I can remember every little bit of it. But
yeah,
I think it has something to do, I guess, with your frequency and being in touch, or actually I live it all the time, like I'm doing right now, all day long. I've been talking about this topic, on another with another guy, and uh and I uploaded videos and I do this and that. So if you're involved in this stuff, just like you it's just like when you go to a haunted house. I got buddies that are ghost story writers, and they say when they go to a haunted house, sometimes they get attached. Have you ever done that, Maxim?
Well, that's when I was at the recent Butler, Pennsylvania Paranormal Conference. The guy that was the ghost hunter showed his the pictures. He was attacked by this demon, and the psychic Vincent sisters believed that it was an attachment. Some demon attached themselves to him, and he was paying the price for it. In that he was being actually physically attacked and abused. I mean, just horrific scars on his chest, and his eye was almost gouged out. So I think that that's real. Again, I warn people that go ghost hunting just to know what you're doing. Be careful what you're looking for. Um, you know, I don't know. It's a really fascinating, marvelous world out there, the paranormal, and and we're just looking for answers. We're looking for definitions.
Right.
How do you define it? And how do you
That's
put the
that's
shape
me.
on it?
My curiosity is like a cat now since I've been, you get smitten by this topic, and you're constantly curious about what's it all about.
Yeah.
Uh, and also about time travel. I heard we have time travel, Maxim. Do you feel we do have time travel? Do you know?
I'd really like to know more about that. That has to be one of the most fascinating topics. But here's what I think. When you talk about the government, I did a conference recently, and the guy sitting next to me at the table, he worked for the government in remote viewing.
Okay.
And I wanted to pick his brain and ask him about that. And he said he couldn't tell me anything. And I know that Jacques Vallée was
Yeah.
noted as a very adept remote viewer, but it's my belief. We always thought that the Philadelphia experiment went to Montauk, and that the government had a project there of mind control and everything in Montauk and Long Island. I think, yes, the government has that, but I don't think it's on Long Island. I think it's all over the place. I think the government has organizations that are looking into mind control, time travel, remote viewing, uh, you name it, whatever it is, just to astral projection,
Right.
just to give us a military edge. And they're putting people together, and they're doing research. And when you take a look at the billions of dollars in black ops money, that nobody knows where the hell that money's going, nobody can account for that money. And I'm trying to think who it was. Right at the same time of uh, the uh, the attack, the 2011 attacks on the Twin Towers.
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah. That's in
the,
September
the,
last
the
year.
9/11 attacks.
Yeah.
One of the government officials was saying that they had lost millions of dollars that were going into this defense fund. Couldn't track, then had no accountability where it was. And then that story, that wonderful story that you and I should be talking about because it fits into this, that went no place. That was covered up because of 9/11. That was the story. That was a story that everybody wanted. So, there's monies there. And, we know about the CIA and we know about the FBI, but we don't know about all the other groups that are there,
Yeah.
and what they do. Because again, Dave, you and I don't have the need to know.
Yeah. I know the NSA has followed me back in 2010 ever since I ran into that ET gal, and they hacked my computer a couple of times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the expert who was a hacker himself, he worked on my computer, and he told me, he said it was a high level hack. It wasn't no
Uh,
college kid hack.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
high level. So I know I've been followed around just because I ran into her. But Maxim, let's close out now. We're over an hour. Can you believe that it goes so fast? And I was
No.
trying, and I was trying to get in all the topics I think we covered them, but we didn't cover them in depth, and we'll maybe do that next time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
tell us, Maxim Furek, where can we can get information on you and where we can find your books?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Dave, thank you for all those five-part questions. And here's my latest book. This is going to be coming out this summer. It's called
Yeah.
Paranormal Apocalypse. Is this how it ends? And there's a gray that looks like a Grim Reaper.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about this. I think this is going to get some attention. But
Great.
the folks could either purchase my books on Amazon, and Coal Region Hoodoo and Lost Tribes of Bigfoot are great books, or they could contact me on my website, www.maximfurek.com, maximfurek.com, and I'd be glad to go and get them an autographed copy of any of my books at a really good rate. So contact me on my website, and yeah, I'd love to go and hear from some of your listeners. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks so much, Dave. This is
Yeah.
great.
Well, we'll have comments, and when I put post the video, we'll have a comment section, and you can probably keep track of those on the Facebook page or even on YouTube. Uh, they normally will ask questions about books or whatever, so I can refer them to
Oh,
you
good. Okay,
and,
yeah.
and to your website. Uh, Maxim Furek, thank you so much for being on the show, and next time I'll carry a smaller suitcase of questions. I saw so many topics here that you cover. I mean, you're covering ghosts, Bigfoot, cryptids, ETs, and the spiritual realm. So that's why I was trying to get
Well,
all.
that's fine. No, it was wonderful. You're a great host at the U.S. It's the right questions. It's just that the paranormal is so fascinating and
Yes,
it encompasses just about everything.
yes, it does. And Maxim Furek, thank you so much. You've been listening to Dave Emmons and the Strange Reality Show. Thank you for listening in, and good night to all, and to you also, Maxim. I will sign off now, and